recording.
What's up, guys? We are the Troponin episodes. We are going to be doing a recap of the the Tampa Pro that just happened. But before we get to that, before we started hitting record, the three of us were sitting here swapping nerd stories. Apparently, Justin's got a whole bunch of stories of multiple weekends where he would basically start gaming on a Friday, and by Sunday morning, basically not have moved from either the console or computer or whatever.
There's 30% of the people watching right now are like, yeah, what's the story? I think bodybuilders and the person who gets obsessed with bodybuilding is the same person that gets obsessed with stuff like that. But we were talking, there was a game on iPhone, years like 2009-ish, called Eliminator, and I got to number 5 in the world on it, which probably doesn't mean much. It might only been, who knows how many people are playing it. And then I created another account to get a top 25. But then, what were the games you guys had? World of Warcraft and...
Yeah, I can't believe I'm coming out in public with this. I play World of Warcraft consistently, probably from my senior year of high school through college, a little bit in grad school, and then when I started having my seizures, that was all I could do. So I got so obsessive. I actually reached top 3 ranked Holy Pally in the North America servers. So that's fun.
If anyone has a
super obsessive.
If anyone has a Game Gear magazine from 1992, late summer, early fall, if you see the Tetris Game Boy edition, you'll see my name it was 303, it came out of 303,000 or 303 million, but level 19.
And at that level, you said 19 and 21, aren't the blocks basically just raining down?
Yeah, I think at 18 they go to free fall, but you just have to get lucky. So my level 19 was actually the higher score because I had more 4 bars, whatever they're like. Yeah. And then once you get to level 17, it's really just, if everything's not lined up perfectly, you have no chance. You have to kind of create, if anything that you can create a spread wide, you have to, if you don't have to flip the block, if you have the block that's this, and you have a single block over here, as soon as you see it, you just have to go straight to the side. Because if you try to flip, you're dead, and you just have to get lucky. But the one I got to level 21, but that was 297,000, which I don't know if that was top 10, because right around 300 was where you got in the top 10, and they were all bunched together. And I don't remember if I think I was number 1 when I submitted it. I don't know if it was by the time it got in, but I was the highlight of my youth.
Dude, I bet everyone listening to this right now is not surprised at all. They're probably well, yeah, of course he kicked ass at the thing. And then I was talking about how my brother and I would literally a new game release would come out, and we would sit there, and he had one or two friends that would always come over, and we would literally from Friday to Sunday evening not move from a console or a computer screen. And I'd sit there and look over his shoulder and what is he doing?
Oh yeah, that's fun.
Dave's a storyline guy.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like I'm the software developer here, but you two are the bigger nerds when it comes to games. But it's funny though, because I think the way I approach video games and the ones that I like mirror my approach to bodybuilding versus yours, because you're super competitive and focused on your ranking. And I care about that just to a degree because I want to keep doing better competitively, but I don't like multiplayer games at all, really. I like big single-player games, huge, the kind where you sink 50 hours into, like The Witcher 3 or Zelda or, any huge open-world RPG and I think the way that I play those games is that, I have to see every single part of the storyline. I have to tick every box. If there are moral decisions to be made or a decision tree, I always have to go to the good guy moral paragon one, and I will if I accidentally do something other than that, I will go back to my last save to make sure that the storyline is not altered to where I didn't want it. And so
he just captain has to do the right thing all the time.
And it has to be done the way that I want it to be done, and so the storyline goes the way I want it to go. And then I'll sink 50 to 100 hours into a game. Or Skyrim's the same way.
I was just going to bring up Skyrim.
Yeah, and then once I do all of that, I'm pretty much done with it. I don't want to do another playthrough because I've seen everything that the story has to offer, and just doing that another way doesn't really have any value to me. Same way as in training, I have to have some progressive style of training. I don't want to just keep going in and doing the same thing, and I've got to tick every box in training. It's I know it's been an hour and a half and I'm tired, but I can't leave the gym because I said I was going to do these 3 sets of curls and a rest pause set at the end of my entire workout, and so I've got to do it. So, it's basically the same way I do that.
It's half OCD.
I love it. That's so funny. That's so funny.
Yeah, I know he's not listening, but if my dad, if Scott Harris is listening, he'll recall the time we got the Sims for Super Nintendo on like a Friday, and we started playing, and that was the only time I ever saw him get hyper obsessed with something. And we played straight through Friday night, straight through Saturday night. And when my mom came down on Sunday, and we were all greasy and dirty, and like been eating Doritos for 3 days, and she just threw a fit and threw away the Super Nintendo. Told me he wasn't allowed to play.
What was it with Grand Theft Auto 2 that you were saying?
That was me. Yeah, that was my wife throwing the PlayStation 2 away. Yeah, I don't think she was mad. I think she was just embarrassed for me. But especially because I didn't get very far. Looking back, for playing like 36 hours straight, I was still like pathetically early into the game. But
pathetically average.
Yeah, it was never
That's okay. But you were probably trying to figure it out. If you'd given yourself another 36 hours, your trajectory probably would have been like that.
I tried to explain it to her. I was right on the cusp. Like, if I just take a couple more days off work, I got a bucket to pee in. If I don't sleep, we can. If she helped me, we can solve it together. It was like, be a team player.
Yeah. You can bring me food, by the way, too.
Yeah, exactly. I got to stay fueled. That was probably the root problem. My brain was low on glucose. I was hard.
It was so funny this weekend seeing you two together and just like seeing the way your brains operate together. I was like, I'm just gonna step out here and let them do their thing.
We were complaining about.
You guys are both such like figure outers of all the things.
I would. Well, they say there's physicists are usually probably like engineers, programmers. They're all like. Did you take things apart when you were a kid, David, and see how they worked? Was that your thing? There's usually people are that, or like they were really, for physics anyways, if people were like really into math and like outer space, or they like to take things apart. And my dad still tells the story about making Super Duper. I had a bunch of Matchbox cars, and we had like a workbench in the basement, and he came down one day, and there were just busted up Matchbox cars everywhere. And he was all mad, because we didn't have any money, and those were like $1 a car. That was a big deal to get a Matchbox car. So I remember I had like this blue, like a trapper keeper type thing that you opened up, and each car had to sit in a certain spot. And it was like a really kind of expensive gift for like a poor, small town kid. And I had all the Matchbox cars taken apart, and he was like furious. But I didn't understand it because I was making a Super Duper Matchbox car. I was taking them apart and taking off like the monster truck tires. I was putting on the Corvette. Because it had the tires sit through a little loop, and you could snip it and then shove a new like axle in, and then if you took like a soldering iron, which I had a soldering iron covered in plastic because of it, and you solder the hole again, then you could close it around the axle, and so you could replace the tires. So you could have like a Corvette or a Lamborghini with monster truck tires, or a dump truck with little tires. Well, he didn't see it as exciting as I did.
I didn't take like things apart that weren't, I guess, meant to be taken apart. Part of that could have been because, like, when I was a little kid, I was such a rule follower that someone would be mad. But I did put things together. I mean, like, my favorite toys were Legos and Kinects. I don't know if anyone else knew Kinects.
Oh yeah.
So, and actually, Kinects were cool because you could make durable things with Kinects, like Legos.
And didn't they have like gears and stuff that you could like make them do things?
If there was there was a while where I was really into like trying to make rubber band guns or guns that would shoot something, and so I would like take Kinects and rubber bands and like try to make some gun, and like it would have like a little hammer like a revolver, but if you would like pull it back right and like load it with a rubber band, you'd shoot one. So I made stuff like that all the time, and I loved that. I love space too. Did you ever have this toy called a Geo Safari?
I don't think so.
No, it was really random. It was like a little computer almost. It was like a board. Like if you took some laptop that was like 2 times size and looked really cartoonish, and it didn't really have much of a keyboard other than like a number pad and a few extra buttons, and it was preloaded with a bunch of information from these like big cards that were like probably the size of a piece of paper or bigger. And these cards, you'd like drop one into the front of it and enter the number of that card, and the machine contained all the info. And so you'd have a card on like space or dinosaurs or whatever, and they had like hundreds of them. And
you're born in the 40s? That sounds like the old punch card Fortran code.
Yeah, like they could like look through.
I guess it was kind of like that. I mean, all the stuff was preloaded on the machine. The card was just to like give you visuals, but they were really artistically well done. And so there'd be like the one on the solar system was my favorite. You drop that in, it would give you a bunch of info, and then it would like quiz you and stuff. And Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, it's funny. The gun thing is funny because I used to do the same thing. My dad got mad at me for that too because I ruined one of his saws. I didn't know what saw to use, and so I think I was using a metal saw to cut guns out of wood, and completely dulled the blade out. But same thing because you put like if you carved a little latch that faced this way, and then you put a little groove in the front. You can pull the rubber band off on that. If it sat right on the edge, you can almost like pretend like you just kind of flicked it with your thumb and would slide it off and shoot it.
Yeah. Good times.
Oh yeah, to be a kid again.
Yeah.
Now so you want to talk about your show?
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I made a little recap video today, just like summing up the peak week, and I'm gonna be putting all these together. So if you guys are watching and you want to watch a peak week, you've probably seen that there are a couple days posted. We're gonna be posting the rest. I made one earlier today where I was legit like actually choking back just tears of frustration because I've never been the person to not perform. That's just not me. And it wasn't my placing that bothered me so much as like I felt like I busted ass to bring conditioning that I thought was going to look awesome on stage, and I didn't even have any good stage shots to show for it because I just straight up I posed better at my first show ever than I did these last two. And I have a couple of ideas of why that happened, but especially when like this peak went so much better, I felt like everything about this week was better.
Well,
I actually slept a couple nights. Like
it went better, but it went different because it came together all at the end. So it probably was more stressful on your end because all the way the night before the show, you were still not dry.
Yeah, it was one of those things where like. Of course, I couldn't see how it was going to come together, but I trust you. And I know that, like, you're not going to let me get on stage looking like I shouldn't be there. So it was one of those things where I was like, okay, like, I hired this coach. He's really good at what he does. He knows I care a lot about this. And, like, I fully trusted that you were going to do whatever was best. So it was a very, very different peak. So, for anyone who's been following in Chicago, I was so flat all week. Like we had to basically fill me out into Thursday. This week we filled me out a lot sooner. It was a little bit actually kind of scary for me, and I talk about that in a couple of videos where I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to be ready for the stage.
Yeah, we kind of spilled even. We pushed you all the way until you were spilling even.
Yeah. And then we dried out a lot more, and I thought my look on Friday was about as good as it could have been. I don't know how it could have been much better at that point, but again, I don't know these things.
I actually have we analyzed some photos today. I mean, like, I thought that made me feel a lot better because you could see it was really just like tiny minor things, and it was really like veteran things. Time in the game. Like your weight on the wrong hip, or your torso position just a little bit different. But the color thing, I didn't really think about it at the time, but because your color will soak up with almost like with water. You're like if you dry out a lot, because you were already tanned before we started drying out, and this is I wish I could go back because I knew this. I mean, I know this. I don't know why it didn't pop in my head, but if you're already tanned before you dry out, during that drying out process, you'll lighten up with your tan. And I think because we dried out so late and so hard after the tanning, I think that was because your tan I think could have been about a shade darker, and they wouldn't have known that because we should have told them to give you a heavier coat or an extra coat.
Because, I mean, I went Friday morning. I got more put on, but the girl that and we can talk about this too. We can probably actually pull up some of the pictures. The gal that you pulled up to compare me to, and you were like, yeah, she's a little bit bigger, but not that much. But her tan was darker. She's also darker skinned.
Yeah.
Or darker skinned. She's, I think, Central American or South American.
I thought she should have won. She was second. I thought she had the best look. The girl in first, I don't know if we should say names or not. I guess it's all out there. But the girl in first.
Oh, I thought they were both just stunning.
The girl in first was better from the back.
Yeah. I really thought that, the two they had in first and second, to me, like, yes, they were really big, but they looked like a big women's physique.
Yeah.
Where, we looked at the first call out, and so just big picture from the show, first call out was like everyone in that call out was just big. Like there were women who had transitioned from bodybuilding into women's physique, and there's a lot of transition going on right now in the women's physique division where all of us kind of feel like, what are we shooting for? Like even backstage, the girls were all like, we don't even know, we don't want to compete in this division anymore, because if they're asking for more size, we don't want to get bigger. Like that's why we're not going to bodybuilding. I think that, you know, if you look at the winners of the shows across this whole year though, you're seeing such a range of what's being rewarded. I mean, you've got people like Natalia who have size and conditioning, but they're not enormous. And then you've got Ashley Jones, who's she's just an amazing athlete. She's got these really, really round muscle bellies. She presents so well on stage. She's just beautiful. And you've got Jeannie who won this weekend. And then, you know, earlier in the year, you've got, I think, who's the gal who won Omaha? Chelsea, who's just really super dense and muscular. And you've got Rachel Daniels, who's just shredded. So you have all these different looks coming into the Olympia. And, like, there's really not a whole lot in common. So I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see where the division goes, but I think that there needs to be a bigger delineation between women's bodybuilding and women's physique, because that line is getting blurred so much, and I think a lot of the competitors are really kind of getting tired of it.
Yeah, very blurred.
And I think we'll lose a lot of competitors.
Yeah, very blurred. Yeah, it's
If they lose competitors, where are they going to go? Figure.
They'll probably just stop competing. Because
the figure girls are getting pretty muscular now too. So figure today is what physique was 6 years ago. So, you know, I mean, it really, I mean, it's the only thing that's weird, and that always happens. You know, we had women's bodybuilding, and then they added like fitness. You know, and the fitness was a smaller look, but then it was fitness, so you had to be a gymnast. So they're like, okay, let's not, you know, we needed another thing. So they had figure, and then each year the figure girls got harder and harder, and then every once in a while they would make a big announcement that you have to be 20% less hard, less dry. And that would hold for a show or two, but it would always creep up because you can't. It's hard to blame the judges, because when you have a tight class and one girl is clearly leaner and better conditioned, it's hard not to give her the nod, you know. Yep. And they slowly creep up. So then they do add bikini, and then wellness is supposed to be, but it's kind of branched off where bikini hasn't really drifted towards more muscular. Bikini's kind of stayed the same. Wellness is weird because wellness at the state level, compared to the national level, compared to the pro level, are totally different sports. Wellness at the state level is basically bikini. The bikini girls usually cross over. Wellness at the national pro level are jacked. You know, they're like, some of their legs are more muscular than physique even, but it's a slightly softer look. But then physique is really kind of like it's just drifted into bodybuilding.
Well, it's just, I mean, and again, it really depends on the show. It's so all over the place. I think that, you know, and again, like one thing I talked about with you a lot was, you know, I felt like had I gone to shows earlier in this year and not just gone potato on stage, and again, I can talk about, I think, why that happened, I think I would have done really well. But the two shows that I jumped into, and I was going to do Texas, are literally the three biggest shows of the year for women's physique.
Tampa was a tough show. That was a big lineup, too.
Yeah, but I think that had it posed well, I think it would have been at least a full call out up. At least.
Yeah.
And it would have been really cool to be a top 10 there. But that's on me. I think that, what was I going to say? Yeah, I think show selection is really important. And I think that, you know, it's one of those things you don't really think about as a competitor. A lot of times you're kind of like just looking at where in the year you can compete. For us, like we were getting ready to move. We just went on vacation. We were trying to prep together because that's something that we've routinely done. And it just seemed like that was the best time of year to do a show. I think had I actually stepped back and looked, I probably early on would have said, you know what, maybe we should wait for a later show like Savannah and then Arizona and then maybe Legion or something after that. Legion's a big one, but, you know, I think I probably would have been more okay there. But these were just big shows. And I gotta be honest, I felt like I didn't belong up there. And I think that getting so busy throughout prep, like everyone's busy. Like everyone gets busy through prep. And it's always a time management game. But there's a difference between busy, prep busy, stupid busy and setting yourself up for failure. And I lived like past the setting yourself up for failure point pretty much through the entire prep. It was like every opportunity someone needed something from me, even if I tried to draw a boundary, like, hey, can you be on this podcast? And I'd be like, hey, can we wait until like after, you know, this date? I'm really full and tight on scheduling right now. You know, they'd push back and I'd say, okay, yeah, sure. Or, hey, we need more articles from you. Like, we really want to feature you. Is there a way that you can get this out? Can you wait until after this date? Well, we really want to feature. Okay, fine, sure. And so I think by the end, honestly, I didn't even know how to be fully present in the moment because I've just spent the last 4 months not being able to complete anything because anytime I sat to do anything, it was like a constant pull. And that's not even including my client work. I mean, which is like the real stuff. So things like posing got pushed to really, really late. And I think not being confident in deserving to be up there combined with just being fatigued from 2 hours of sleep a night, literally for the last 3 months. Like on Tuesday, I tried to pose with Ashley and I literally couldn't stand up without shaking. I texted my best friend and I was like, Amanda, I don't know how I'm even going to get on stage on Friday. So I'm not surprised, but I'm really, really bummed. And I don't know, you know, it's hard, I think, because you never want to be that athlete who just says no to everything while you're in prep just because of prep.
It's tough. You know, the people listening, the sport is weird in that, you know, you play golf, you make your money playing golf. You play basketball, you make your money playing basketball. There's money to be made in the sport and all, but it's kind of, you know, like surrounding the sport. You know, there's not a lot to be made competing. Being a good competitor puts you in a position to set up businesses that make you a lot of money from the sport. You know, sponsorships, guest posings, you know, websites, coaching, you know, photo shoots, things like that. But they're really separate to the sport. And then even worse, the time when you're most profitable in that way is when you're in shape, which is when you're in prep. So it's really, you know, it would be like if, you know, if like basketball players didn't make very much money playing basketball, but they could make a lot of money because they're basketball players, but they could only do that during the season. You know, if or a baseball player, you know, playing 162 games, it's like, okay, I can make a lot of money because I'm a baseball player during the baseball season, but I'm playing every day. Where am I going to fit this in? So it's difficult.
And I think too, like, especially if you're someone who has just kind of been I mean, literally from the moment we started prep, it was like, we bought a house. We were moving in 2 weeks. We had to figure out how we were going to get everything done. I mean, it's literally been in go mode. By the time I got on stage for Tampa, it really hit me how much I was like, I don't know how to be present anywhere right now. It's like I lost that ability. And a lot of that was on me. But it just, man, I've never felt so not myself, I guess, while performing. Because again, like growing up, every important penalty kick, every important like playoff game, every like single elimination, I've always showed up to perform and execute. And to fail at that twice, I was like, what is going on with me? Like, and when it really comes down to your own performance, it's just a personal accountability thing that feels really bad. Dave actually really challenged me today because I was talking and texting you about even maybe doing Texas still. And Dave was like, you know, you even mentioned how you felt like you had a lot of internal wins. How did you say it? You're like, you've had a lot of wins. Like, the wins that you've had are the ones that people aren't seeing, and you need to be able to talk about that. Like, that's the kind of thing that resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah. That, and just be okay with not everyone knowing all the positives that came from it.
Well, the positives right now are that I've got a little chip on my shoulder to do better next year.
And the things that we analyze photos. The things that need to change are things that can be changed. You know, there's 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 a bodybuilder, Jeremy Freeman. I think he's actually an MMA coach now, and he was a muscle tech athlete, and he turned pro through Canada, but he had like structural issues. You know, really high triceps, bad muscle insertions. You know, that's a much worse place to be in, where there's things that you just can't change. The things that you need to improve on are things that you can improve on. So that's promising.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like my front double is usually a pose. It's like it's usually a really strong pose for me. Like my lat taper comes out pretty well. As long as my upper body is full, I can make it look big. And so it's weird that the two shows, one of my best poses ended up being the first pose the judges saw, and immediately they were like, okay, we're done with her. Like I feel like they didn't even look at me the rest of the time. But one thing I've been wondering too is like, you think about, everyone's like, oh, you can't be hard on yourself. It's your rookie season. And I'm like, pardon my language here, but fuck that. Like, it's not that I don't want to be hard on myself. It's that I want to be able to, I don't want to use it's just my rookie season as a reason to not do well.
Did a competitor say that to you?
Many.
That seems so weird. That, like, I can see somebody...
And I want to respect the time they've put in. Like, I want to give them that, because a lot of these women have been competing, 10, 15 years. And obviously there's so much that goes into this. But...
It's a weird thing for a competitor to say that.
Well,
that's the
thing with
versus
sport,
layperson, because any competitor has gone through it. They know what you just put in the last prep. Like, you can't...
Well, I think a lot of people, their third show, don't come in with the level of conditioning that Justin's brought us in with. And so to have worked that hard... This is
a difference, like there's phenoms in sports, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Tiger Woods. That's exceedingly rare in this sport. You can go back, the sport's 70 years old, and you can go back and count on one hand the number of people who came out and really did well. You can count on 0 hands the number of people who were doing well on pro shows in their third diet. I mean, that seriously, you got.
But we had potential to have done that.
What's that?
We had potential to have done
that. Yeah.
And that's what drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it just, I've never dropped the ball like this before, and I'm really having a hard time reconciling it. You can tell I can't stop talking about it. But the whole like, oh, you can't be hard on yourself. It's only your third show or fourth show. Yes, obviously, again, like I really want to give, these women are amazing, and the fact that they've stuck around this long and have put in the work to be where they are, I have so much respect for it. But I really wish that there wasn't this expectation that people come into their pro debut and like just make it through. Like, you should always want to do as best you can. And I think that mindset is the kind of thing that...
No, that's a winner's mindset. Like, the dude who just won, was it USA's?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he won USA's. He immediately came to Tampa, and he took 7th out of 14 in the men's open. And I remember looking at his posts like this morning, and he was kind of pissed off. And he was like, look, all you people that are saying that's great for a pro debut, he basically said, well, screw that. That's middle of the pack. That's mediocre, and I'm not okay with that. Mm-hmm. And that sounds harsh to someone who's not really competitive. But like, if you try so hard that you achieve that level of success, it's not that hard to then see how that's going to translate into your next competition. Like, you're going to expect the same of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to be fair, I think that you can delineate it or differentiate it in that you should absolutely be upset at the things you could have done better. The weird thing with this sport is that it's not entirely in your hands. It's someone else judging it. So there is that aspect but yeah, if you're a competitor and you're someone who wants to win and is used to winning, if there were things that you could have changed that would have impacted and you're not upset about it, that's probably a problem. And that's,
yeah. I think part of me wonders too, like, one of my big fears is, I don't know if anyone listening is familiar with the Enneagram test, but I'm about the highest Enneagram 3 you can possibly imagine, which means we find our self-worth and our performance and our achievements in all the things we're good at. And it is hard to, when you're someone who's used to finding worth in that, even if you're very conscious of it and kind of work through it. Man, it just feels bad. But there's a part of me that was like, well, did I just screw my chance at building this business? Did I just screw my chance at really like being a standout coach? Did I screw my chance at, really trying to elevate Team Troponin? And I was like, well, hang on. Like, I thought about when I tore my adductor tendon, and I was like, man, I'm a fake PT because I had this big injury, but I look back at it. And that was one of the biggest trajectory changers for me as a clinician, as a coach, and as a powerlifting athlete. And that it made me dig deeper into a knowledge base that I didn't know I had, and I got a lot better for it. And it's probably one of the more influential things I've had happen that have truly made me level up my clinical game for bodybuilding, powerlifting, and all that too. So I'm hoping this is like that. But I mean, do you think that like, so in the pro league, let's say you do not so great your first 2 shows and you show up next year, do the judges are like, they don't remember you?
I'm trying to think. I feel like there was someone who turned pro, competed for maybe like I want to say 4 or 5 years as a pro, often placing out of the top 15, and then went on to win. Was it 7 or 8 Olympias? Ronnie.
This is a men's open.
Ronnie, yeah, it's men's.
Oh. Okay, all right, okay. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better.
I mean, Jay Cutler was last in the '99 Olympia, or 50. I think there's 15 competitors. I think he's 15.
You say 99?
Yeah.
Wasn't he up to second by 2001?
Exactly.
I just don't want to be one of the bad pros. And then of course there's like the
Okay,
the whole
well,
like
now we're getting into silly
hang
territory.
on. But then there's also the like, I'll be 35 this year. We want kids, so there's this other layer of like, how long do I have to compete before like my body changes a lot?
That is another. That's
like,
another thing. That's another thing to consider, though. Is this sport is different than it was 50 years ago when Arnold was competing, or even 35 years ago, 40 years ago when Lee Haney was competing. It's an old person sport now. It really is. Yeah. The look that's needed with the thin skin really does. Your peak in this sport now is like 38 to 42, and with the women possibly even older. You know, you're like. I mean, everyone, like, you've seen your grandma's skin. You know, you can see the blood pulsing through the veins. Their skin's so thin. That's
grandma's whip.
Grandma's
it is. That's the way the sport is. You know, 50 years ago, it wasn't. It was like a, you know, like, look at those pictures of Arnold. His skin's thick and smooth, and, you know, they don't want that anymore. It's an old person sport. Your peak is really around age 40 now. It really is, you know. Okay. And so and even in the women, there's a lot of women nearing 50 or over 50 doing very well. It's you know, because women's skin thins out even later than men's. I mean, you know, like, we'll go back to Arnold, Maria Shriver, like, look at her face, you know, when they first got married to now. And so it's weird in that thing, because the reason other sports are younger sports is because of the hormonal issues. We sort of sidetrack that in this sport, you know, and so we like the outside things that happen as you age, you know, the thinner skin, things like that. So it's weird in that way, because it's the days of you know, like someone coming out and winning a top show as a 22-year-old. This just doesn't happen anymore. You know, I mean,
a good data point to that effect is who just took. I think Akeem won the Open, but Kamal took second, and he's like 50 something.
Yeah, I mean, it's
good.
There's plenty of female competitors in their 50s that placed well. I mean, maybe not plenty, but I can think 3, 4, 5 of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's like, it's just all these, you know, I don't even want to call them like little fears. It's just like the little thoughts, right? And I think the biggest thing that has been good for me about this prep is, again, the stuff that I probably haven't talked a lot about. I talked about it a lot in the vlogs that we'll be posting, but you know, just the mindset stuff, because I think that you can get online and you can watch the top competitors who, again, like, they don't really have to do anything other than, like, you know, they eat their chicken and rice and they go work out and they go home and they play video games.
And half the time they have to be told to eat it, you know. There's plenty of videos of people playing a video game where someone's like, hey, it's time to eat your...
Time to eat. You know. But I think, you know, the thing that's been really cool for both of us has been, again, just kind of like, I don't want to talk about like the internal growth and like really what you learn about yourself, but really it does make you very aware of your weaknesses, almost hyper aware of your weaknesses, and makes you really look at them. Case in point, my constant need to achieve and find a lot of worth in what I accomplish. And I think it really makes you hyper aware of those things, and those things are what make you grow as a person. And one thing Dave told me over the weekend too is, like, I'm someone who sets lofty goals, and he's like, the loftier goals you set, the more you're going to fail, and you're going to have to be okay with failing. And this is probably the first time I've really ever failed at anything. And I didn't die, which is good.
Yeah.
So just kind of getting okay with that, comfortable with that. I'm like, I told Dave earlier too, I'm like ashamed to walk in destination this week. I shouldn't be.
I know that feeling. I'm the same way. Where
Do you?
well, I'm the same way.
That makes me feel so much better.
You take second place in something, and you're like embarrassed to show your face.
Well, everyone in destination was like, "You're freaking peeled. Like you are shredded. You're gonna do amazing." And I was like, "Well, God, I hope so." And so to walk in there and be like, "Yeah, I got third call out." It's like, cool. It just feels like I'm embarrassed. I shouldn't be, but it's again like the things we tell ourselves. And so I hope that anyone listening, like, just know that, like, whatever you're thinking post show, like, there's probably about 1 million other people who have thought it. And I think it's always worth talking about the successes and the failures equally. Yeah. I feel like I let my clients down, which is stupid because it's not the case, but you just wonder that, like, just the stupid things we start to think and wonder about.
For more content like this, visit www.teamtroponin.com.
This video is brought to you by First Attachment Nutrition, battle-tested nutrition, expert formulated supplements. Join the First Attachment revolution.